At Cedar Point, riders have been seeing double since 1978 on Gemini, the tallest, steepest, fastest racing coaster in the world. On Gemini, the steepest hills in the Midwest are heightened by a high-speed race. At the rate of 4,000 riders per hour, parallel trains go one-on-one as they race through 6 acres of winding, whirling track. When they leave the station, it's red train versus blue. Riders on each side psych each other out during the slow climb up a 125-foot hill. Then the race begins with the initial 118-foot plunge that propels them up to 60 miles an hour. It's a 2-minute, 20-second game of catch-up as the lead passes back and forth. Red in the lead at the top of the next hill. Blue catches up at the bend. And in the home stretch, Gemini throws both trains off final curve as the tracks split into dual 360-degree loops. It's double the thrills and double the capacity with 40,000 rides per day. The winner and still the champion, Gemini, of the racing coasters.
Gemini opened at Cedar Point in 1978, becoming the tallest roller coaster at the time. And to be a dueling rolling coaster at that, amusement park history was made. Today we reminisce with rides on the aging beauty, slapping hands with riders going around the corners, and keeping your hands up through some of the best head chopper moments on a roller coaster.
Welcome back to Ghoster Coasters. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. A huge shout out goes to our coaster ghost and producers of the channel like CP Coaster Lover. Today we wanted to get into the future of Gemini at Cedar Point. The aging, ever so graceful coaster built by Aerodynamics has been the root of many rumors over the years, from potentially being removed completely to the crazy RMC enthusiasts like my mother, and others saying that the ride could use an operation overhaul to bring down the employees needed to run the ride. Today, we'll discuss all of that and more, so let's get into amusement park history and see what may happen to one of the most nostalgic rides in history. A few years back, my mother and I made a joke about RMCing Gemini at Cedar Point, and well, quite a few people have mentioned that on their own or tagged us in funny comments about it over the years, which, hey, we definitely love that, guys. It's hilarious.
Gemini.
Even just the other day, I got a tweet, and they tagged me in a RMC Gemini tweet, and I was just like, shout out to you guys.
First things first, 2 RMCs right next to each other essentially would be insane. And well, unlikely, but never say never. Cedar Fair's relationship with RMC is rumored to be strained at best, though we really don't know, and of course, with the Six Flags merger potentially happening, RMC can very easily make their way into the parks again. Speaking of, Gemini.
The ride often runs one side, doesn't open immediately with the park in most cases, and is even closed during Halloween weekends on Thursdays and Fridays if I remember correctly, only opening for the weekend during that time, and it's super unfortunate. Halloween in the air, excitement for the thrills of the jump scares around the corner at night, but no racing from the Gemini Midway can be seen or heard, and we really think that's a shame.
Seeing a ride like Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain and then imagining what they could do with Gemini is just an insane thought. Taking a meandering layout to a full action-packed layout with inversions and more could do wonders, or even just upping the family model and keeping a similar feeling to the old racing coaster. Could they do a single rail racing model perhaps? That would be so cool to see whipping by on the Midway. And to be fair, one side could be with the inversions and the other without to create the family versus thrill racing while keeping everyone happy.
Yeah, and I know a couple people have been like, but they don't do single rail like hybrid conversions, and I'm like, okay, isn't iBox coaster just 2 single rail? Like, I'm sure they could figure it out. That's all I'm going to say on that. I understand it's not really a concept that they've done, but I don't see why they couldn't when iBox is literally like the same technology but 2 tracks. I don't know. Just give me that one, guys. But what about a Mobius loop? That'd be sweet to still race, but we do see faults in RMCing it as well. Capacity will take a hit, and nobody wants to go through the Steel Vengeance-esque security to get to ride another roller coaster. Gemini's fast lane is direct. The ride can run through people on busy days at full capacity, and no matter what, the RMC effect will slow that down. We like being able to marathon Gemini on slower days, and while, yeah, an RMC would always be awesome, who knows what happens, and this is lower on our list than most others. I know my mom would love it, but I'm just sitting there thinking about going through those lines, and doesn't sound fun to have at Cedar Point.
With the RMC having been discussed, let's go ahead and talk about reprofiling, retracking, or reprogramming the ride to keep down the number of ride ops needed to run Gemini. Over the years, we've heard ideas floated out there such as reprogramming the ride, building a gatekeeper-esque operator booth so you could essentially cut down on employees needed for the all clear on both sides. No matter what, the ride will need employees and more than other rides due to both sides of the roller coaster, but we do hope it stays for the long run. We like the idea of reprogramming the ride, being able to get it up and open quicker in the mornings, maybe, and even getting the funny kinks that have developed over the years of aging out of the ride. Seeing 4 trains running on busy days is always a fun sight. So what about retracking the ride?
Yeah, we've heard that a few times, and well, I don't know, the ride's smooth to us and doesn't really fit the need for a retrack, so we're not too sure why that idea gets floated around all that much, but nonetheless, figured we'd mention it and give it a small discussion. If it happened, hey, I'd be super, super happy. Now, moving on to the big rumors about the ride. In 2002, when Dragster was being built, it was rumored that the park almost had to remove Gemini in order to fit the launch in for the new Top Thrill Dragster coming in 2003. Fortunately, the park saved Gemini by getting Intamin to amp up its technologies and launches and bring Top Thrill Dragster to 120 miles an hour in such a short distance. With that knowledge commonly discussed among enthusiasts, the thought always comes back around. Watching Gemini sit dormant and closed on Halloween weekends for half of it always stings. So could the historic Gemini potentially be on the chopping block going forward?
When discussing coasters closing, you always have to take into account the age of a coaster. Opening in 1978, the coaster will be making its 46th run during the 2024 season. And with a ridership of over 1 million riders for such a long time, you have to imagine the stress on the coaster at some point. Now, Cedar Point maintenance is amazing, so no, the coaster isn't unsafe by any stretch, so don't get that twisted. But it is getting up there in age for a coaster life, and we can't be remiss when discussing it. The age of the ride could definitely factor into decisions down the line.
Another huge thing about Gemini is the plot that it sits on. Backing up to the parking lot for the water park and extra parking spaces running along the fence line, we can't help but imagine what Cedar Point could do with that plot, especially with some creative thinking and usage of land available surrounding it. As mentioned earlier, it takes quite a few attendants to operate the ride. 2 ride ops dispatching, 2 on each side of each train in the front half, and 2 on each side of the train on the back half. We're already at 10 people when both sides are running? No? That's a lot of hourly to pay to run a ride, and of course that plays a factor into any decisions that a park makes going forward.
The few saving graces for the ride are the nostalgic aspects it offers the riders. A unique, one-of-a-kind racing experience with open trains that allow riders to really engage with each other, clapping hands around the corners, passing dollar bills to others on the train, or the collective rowing of a whole train to speed it up or catch up to another train. It's a great coaster with a low height requirement that offers many young riders a great first big coaster.
I mean, yeah, even myself, I remember pushing my little feet against the back of the other seats on the train as a kid, being so excited going up that lift hill. I know you did something similar as well when we rode it. You were like, put your hands up and don't put them down when we were going under the hill. So, I mean, will these reasons be enough to save Gemini in the long run? Or will the park look to make changes to the existing rides, such as ride modifications to ensure a longer life? Or is it inevitable that Gemini sees its fate and closes one day in the future, leaving all of us whose first big coaster ride was Gemini remembering what once was? The park is ever changing, going in new directions, and taking on new forms of life as the decades go on. We're just hoping one of the most important chapters in Cedar Point history is here to stay. From my mother's rides as a child to my first rides as a child with my mom, Gemini is a special place in roller coaster history for so many people and the memories of so many guests and enthusiasts over the years.
Let us know down below what you think about the future of Gemini at Cedar Point. Be sure to smash that like button. It greatly helps the channel, and we couldn't do it without all of you. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I mean, come on, what are you waiting for?
Yeah, guys, come on. Join the ghoulish fun today. If you're already subscribed, then check out the memberships page and become a coaster ghost and producer of the channel like CP Coaster Lover and more. We couldn't do this without all of you coaster ghosters out there. And, as always,
Thanks for being a part of this spooky community and for
Coaster Ghostin' with Ghoster Coasters. Have a Six Flags day, everybody.
at America's Rockin' Roller Coast.
And hey, don't get rid of Gemini.
RMC it.